The name of the show is The Way to Go. My name is Alan Bendich. I'm going to be your host, and this is Max Bendich, and he's my guest. But we might be talking. He might be the host a little bit. We're going to talk back and forth because I was just talking with Josh, right? It's about and Brian, and there's Matt back there, and Andrew, and of course Dina. But I was talking about some of the Hollywood days, and I had mentioned that I'd met Linda Hamilton at the Hollywood Palace one evening. And I think I told the story a million times, actually, but I'm pretty sure I told it on the show. There was this guy, John Volstadt, that used to be on the Bob Newhart show. Bob Newhart used to have a lot of like sitcoms on television, and John Volstadt was one of the supporting players on the show. And he was one of my regulars at the Hollywood Palace, and I used to give him, I probably charged him for every other beer. So he used to come, we'd talk and all this. And I told him, I saw this movie called The Assassination Game, TAG, The Assassination Game, so that was the acronym. And I said, there was this gorgeous girl on the show with the most beautiful lips, and her name was Linda Hamilton. He said, Linda Hamilton? She and I went to acting school together. I said, he said, would you like to meet her? And I said, sure. So a couple of months go by, and of all the things, I think that night we had a group called Wang Chung, which everyone jokes about, from the 1980s. It was a funny name group. And John came up to the bar, and I was in the mezzanine level because I was called the Mez. You remember that, right, Dan? And John comes up and says, Linda's here. Would you like to meet her? And I'm up there bartending with my buddy Gino Politano, who's a good friend of mine, and he still is a friend of mine, and my bar back, Tim Bartell. And he's a filmmaker. He actually has films in some festivals right now. He's doing very well. And Tim was about 18 years old at the time. So I said, sure. So he brought Linda up, and she came to me, and I'll do it. I'm not going to kiss you, but I'll show you. I said, nice to meet you, and she wouldn't let go of my hand. I said, oh, so she's holding onto my hand. I said, and I don't know, I was all flustered. And I said, Linda, the movie, The Assassination Game that you were in? I watched it 10 times because you were in it. And then she told me the guy who played there was like a murderer in it, or some sort of psycho murderer. She said, the person who played the psycho murderer in that, he's my husband. So I said, okay, good. But she's still holding my hand. Okay, she said she married him after that movie. So we're talking, and I'm saying, I have people at the bar, but I'm just like looking into her eyes and all this stuff. And I said, well, I got to go back. And she said, okay. And she pulls me in, and she kisses me right on the lips. So that's, and she had the most beautiful lips, like really. And she was Sarah Connor in the movie The Terminator. And I didn't know that at that time. So I went to my bar back, and my bar back, Tim, said, do you know who you just kissed? I said, yeah, man, I saw her on HBO. I kept on watching. She's beautiful. She said, no, she's in this new movie. So it had to be 1984 when this happened. He said, she's in this new movie, The Terminator. And I hadn't seen it yet. So it was interesting.
Alan, you reminded me of something.
Okay.
We decided to see Joe.
Right.
My brother Joe.
Right.
He lived in Arizona, and what was the name of that?
Sun City,
a development, one of the biggest development in I'll
whatever.
remember.
It doesn't matter.
All right, doesn't matter. And Mom and I start out riding to California with it must have been a Chevy or whatever.
No, it was my Chevette. I had a car that I smashed up, and the first time you came to visit me in Hollywood, you drove my Chevette to me. Oh. And that was how I got my car.
Right. Now, and on the way, we went to my brother.
Right.
And however we were there. Right. It was about from here. I don't know, Arizona.
Whatever.
Now from
so you
Arizona,
drove there. You went to Vegas.
We went to Las Vegas. No. Oh. We went to Las Vegas on the way home.
Okay.
And from there we went to see you.
Right.
And we come into I see I think it was the Route 5 or whatever it is. It's the name Hollywood. So we get off there, and Alan, please. And we're riding. We were lost, but we knew that Hollywood was going this way. Right. And we come to a place, and neither I or Mom, I don't know, what do we see? A crowd, about 10 people. in police uniforms. I said, good, let's go downstairs. And it never occurred. We're in Hollywood. We go, and let's go down there to find out how to get to Hollywood. I go down there, and I'm looking for a spot first to park, and finally I go and I park. I go over to one of the people. I said, please, look, my son is
You
here.
say officer.
An officer, naturally, they're all cops. And they're laughing at me and everything. And I don't even realize it. They all wear New York uniforms.
Right.
The police have, the police cars, New York. Everything was New York.
Right.
And I don't even, then finally one of the people says, look, we're actors. I said, I don't even know what they're talking about. I go, we're actors. But you see that guy over there?
That's a real
He's
cop.
a real policeman.
Right, that's it.
I go over to him, and sure enough, then I'm realizing they are actors. I mean, they're not policemen.
Right.
And the policeman told me to do this and this and this. And I think at that time, you were living in Texarkana or
No,
something.
it was called, no, it wasn't that. Hold on a second. Tarzana. Tarzana.
Tarzana.
Right.
That's where it is. Thank you.
That was like above North Hollywood.
That's right. And from there,
I got a story about Tarzana.
All right.
When I first got to, what happened was first when I got to California, I was visiting my cousin Al, may he rest in peace now. But I went on vacation for 3 weeks. That lasted for 8 years, or 7.5 years, whatever it was. But I lived in Berkeley, and then no, first in Oakland, then Berkeley, and then San Francisco, and then. But I forgot what we were saying. Oh, Tarzana. So then I did a movie called. My first movie I worked on was called The Right Stuff, and I was an extra. But I wound up working on it and becoming friends with. I was going out with a girl who did all the print ad work and promotion for Universal Studios and United Artists in San Francisco. So she had a screening room. So I was also working on The Right Stuff. I was bartending also. So The Right Stuff, the people who were casting The Right Stuff wanted me to go to all the screenings of the new movies that were coming out that my girlfriend could do. So basically I was like, maybe it was like trading, parts for
the intervening person.
Right, exactly. So I was able to give them what they wanted, which was to go to screenings, and they gave me a job as the extras coordinator for the movie The Right Stuff. So I worked on that movie for 4 months. I got my cousin Jonathan a job, and he was actually the guy that closes the hatch on Alan Shepard's. He was the first astronaut. So the person who closes the hatch is our cousin Al's son Jonathan. But anyway, I worked on that for 4 months. Then I worked on another movie called Forbidden Love that was with Andrew Stevens and Yvette Mimeo, whoever they are now. But Yvette Mimeo was this hot young girl 40 years ago. So anyway, so she was a little bit older. She had passed her prime. And Andrew Stevens was the son of Stella Stevens, who was also like a big actress in the early 60s. She was with Dean Martin and all that stuff.
I remember Stella Stevens.
So anyway, I was working on this movie, and I met my friend Steve Cohen on it. But and basically Steve Cohen was the person saying, "What are you doing up here?" After we wound up, we wound up double dating. It was weird, but we wound up double dating. And the next day, I'm working on the set of Forbidden Love. He said, "What are you doing up here if you want to go to Hollywood? I mean, why aren't you in Hollywood if you want to be an actor?" I said, "Well, I'm only here a few months, and I wasn't sure if I really wanted to, do it." He said, "Well, why don't you come down to Hollywood?" And I was dating a girl in San Francisco, and so 2 weeks later, I just say to hell with it. I'm coming to San Francisco. I mean, I'm going to Hollywood because I had Jonathan's best friend, one of his best friends, Rodney Franklin, was recording a song, an album for CBS Records in Los Angeles. And CBS was putting him up at a place called the Oakwood Apartments on Barham Boulevard, which is right across the street from Universal Studios. So anyway, so Steve Cohen and I, Steve Cohen was the guy who was the person who I worked with on Forbidden Love in San Francisco. He got me a part as an extra in the movie The Twilight Zone. And it was filmed right across the street from where I was living on Barham Boulevard. So I walked across the street to the studio. And we filmed from 6 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning. I was wearing woolen Nazi uniform. I met Vic Morrow, who died on that set. And I met John Landis, who was the director of that segment. And it was, and that was my first experience in Hollywood, was working at Universal Studios in the movie The Twilight Zone. And then I got the bartending job at the Hollywood Palace, which was an unbelievable job. And, opening night was Tina Turner. And we had, and also through Rodney Franklin, who was an unbelievable jazz pianist. His producer was this guy, Stanley Clark, who's an unbelievable bass player, and just unbelievable. And through him, I met Chaka Khan, I met Stevie Wonder, I met so many people. It was just George Duke, all these. If I was a really good musician, and I know I took piano lessons forever, if I was a musician, I was set. I mean, I was in the company of unbelievable, important artists, and but I just hung out with them. It was a lot of fun.
And whatever you did, said, little by little, it was the right thing. Even the possibility, even if you had all that knowledge about the play, it may not. Again,
you never know what's going to happen.
You don't know what.
But one thing I did know was that I used to hang out at Wonderland, which was Stevie Wonder's studio, and I became friends with the people that worked at the studio. So they would come to the Hollywood Palace. I'd make sure they didn't have to pay at the door. I'd give them drinks. Then I could go, and I was hanging out at Stevie Wonder's studio. And it's just weird when you just become part of the entourage of people that are hanging out. And the circle got bigger. My act, and again, I would play poker and things like that with the guys from the casting people in Hollywood. I worked on a lot of different shows. You worked on a lot of different shows when you came to visit. I mean, you had a ball, right?
I had a ball. But something else, when we talk about the ball. So finally I come into near Hollywood, and I remember names, only names. And I see a sign, Hollywood. I know Hollywood Boulevard, Vine, Hollywood and Vine.
Who worked there?
You.
I know.
I heard, wow, I'm on Hollywood and Vine. And eventually to find out, maybe about 100 feet or 200 feet from the who was there? The Mez.
That's me, right. That's why the Hollywood Palace was right across, it was on Vine Street, and then it was between Hollywood Boulevard and Yucca, if you could believe that's the next block. And right across from the Hollywood Palace was the Capitol Records building, the spiral building that you see all the time.
And the Capitol Records.
That's it. And
I remember.
Yeah.
But, and I remember one thing, something that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
We're sitting outside where the studio was. In other words, here you see a police station. You go you open up the door. It's a New York police station.
That's for Cagney and Lacey.
For Cagney and Lacey.
Right.
Unbelievable. But from the outside, you walk right by it.
Right.
Again,
It looks like a building.
And it wasn't a building. It was a short,
No, it was a building. It was a warehouse.
Well, I don't remember. All right. And all of a sudden, I am in Hollywood and Vine.
Right.
And I'm outside the building, and a man comes along selling something. I'll never forget that. Yeah. But a Walkman, what was it?
Yeah, Walkman.
A Walkman. It was cheap, and I bought it.
Yeah.
Alan, one of the best
purchases you ever made.
The music first. It wasn't so expensive,
right.
And the Walkman. It was a good thing.
I remember when I was bartending one night in the restaurant portion of the Hollywood Palace, right? And all of a sudden, these guys come in. I don't know who they are. And they're nice. They're hanging out the bar, and it's a quiet area. Mm-hmm. This was a night that there was no show, and I wanted to work that night, make some extra money. And all of a sudden, this guy comes in and starts bothering one of the women that was with one of these guys, and me, the short dude, goes up to the guy and escorts him out. I just separate them and escort him out. I nullified the situation. There was no problem. The next day, I get a stack of CDs, and in those days, it was new. It was like the 80s.
And
it was the Beatles CDs, the original, because Capitol Records was the Beatles. And I got all the Beatles CDs back in the early 80s or mid 80s, whenever they first came. It was the first printing of the CDs it was unbelievable. I'll never forget that. But it was fun. I met so many artists. I met, I said Stevie Wonder. He actually went out with Jonathan's girlfriend. But these people were,
Wait,
Amazing.
something, I remember that again. So we're walking in the street, Mom and I, or something, and who walks right by us? An actor, a well-known actor.
Right.
Or another time, we're walking and we're going into a store, another big actor coming out, just nobody even talking to them. They must, and about 3 or 4 times
That happens all the time.
it happens, and they're amazed. No one speaks to the people. Why? Because
Well, I used to live before I moved into the final place. The first place I lived was in this kind of like a rooming house kind of place, but you'd have like a small kitchen area, and it was all filled with actors. And I had like basically a studio. But right down the block was something called the Mayfair Market. It's still there, but they changed the name. And I'd go there, and I'd see actors. I'd see Michael Constantine, who used to be on Room 222, you know. And I forgot the guy's name, but in All in the Family, there was an African American actor who played the son of who was like the next door neighbor of Archie Bunker. So they would always talk about the race issues. I used to see him all the time, and the person who played John Travolta's father in Staying Alive, Val Bizzaglia was his name, of all things. He was next door, like in the next building. I'd see him all the time. I'd say, "How you doing, Val?" You know, I mean, he was the nicest guy in the world, and all these people were neighbors. You know, and we'd all go to the same supermarket.
This is what I say. You hit it on the head, Alan. Good. Everyone was a neighbor.
Right.
Everyone, and if they saw them,
Right.
I think at that time, after a while, they didn't bother them because
No,
it would be
they'd say hello to you. And the thing is, a lot of times these actors, you know, if they look like you're stalking them or something, they won't talk to you. But after a while, you see each other, you wind up becoming friendly, or at least, you know, maybe not friends, but friendly, because you get to see them. It's your neighbors. There was also this place called the Beechwood Cafe, and it was up a hill right next to where I lived. And you go there, and you know, Pee Wee Herman would be there. Right across the street, we had what's his name? I can't think. Now I'm having a senior moment. But we'd have people from Animal House that would eat there. It was a local place where people always ate their breakfasts, and you'd find like and people who lived in that area. I mean, they're in the business. You go anywhere, like in Burbank, you go for breakfast, you're bound to see stunt people, actors. I mean, people have to eat, and you know, they're actors.
one thing bad. To me, it was bad. So I'd walk along Hollywood Boulevard, and I'd see young people
Right.
sitting with their hands out.
Right.
Young people.
Well, that's not the bad part. I mean, that's not really the bad part.
And to me, Alan,
Right.
maybe I was who knows what I was.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of drugs
I never
back
knew about drugs.
Well, but you know, they're also selling themselves.
And
on
you were
Hollywood
telling
Boulevard.
me, those people there, I said, impossible. They're sitting there,
Right.
and it's a shame.
Right.
Why is it a shame? It's a dream.
Right.
That's it, the whole dream. They dream that they're going to be in Hollywood and Vine, in other
And
words,
there they are.
and with their names on the thing,
Right.
and it never happened.
But you know what? And you know, for me,
And
I did it then as I'm doing it now. I did it for fun, but I always had a job. I was always like bartending. I always had something else. You know, even when I was on Cagney and Lacey, I had the bartending job. You know, and that's it. I always had the bartending, or I had something else because I knew that acting.
No, see, that's see what you. It never occurred to me, like we say, the acting. To me, acting was
The ultimate.
terrific. That's a beautiful word. The ultimate.
Right.
That's right. So here I see
I know, but how
our
many
children almost.
Yeah, but how, you know, you have like thousands of kids going to L.A.
That's right.
every week or every month, and they're all trying to chase that dream, and then they wind up, you know, getting
Whatever.
getting whatever, and it's you know, the thing is, I had no problems getting a job. The thing that I liked was I got a job at the Hollywood Palace. That was like the ultimate club in Hollywood when I was there. Yeah, and you remember, I mean, it was beautiful, $8 million club, and that's when $8 million was $8 million. I mean, the club was beautiful. It was in the movie Against All Odds and all that stuff. So I was lucky. For every one person that's lucky, there's hundreds of people that aren't. And
that's it, Alan.
that's it.
That's what And again, I'm not the person to accept that. I felt sorry for them. Why? Because it never occurred to me. Beautiful, Alan, they were beautiful. Even the fellows were handsome guys.
Right.
They were all, like you say, on drugs. I never thought of it on drugs.
You know, the other thing that's interesting, you say that, okay? I'm just remembering, I know I said it on the show, probably a long time ago, but you talk about beautiful guys and all this stuff. I remember going to one audition, and it was, one of my friends who was a casting director said, they're having an open audition, cattle call, whatever, for an Hitachi commercial. They're looking for guys to play a mobster from like the 40s. So, so I go, I buy a suit. I go to a costume shop. They have them in Hollywood, because every actor needs to have the right outfit. So I bought spats for my shoes. I bought a nice, like 1940s suit. I got a nice hat, and I look good. I look like a mobster. I go there. All these guys are tall. They, like their hair is perfect, black. They look like the worst mafioso people you did you're looking. It's like, oh my God. So I'm feeling like insecure. Like I'm looking around, because that's the worst thing in an audition is if you look at the other people. Because you look at the other people, you get yourself crazy and psyched, Lulu. So anyway, so it's my turn to go in front of the camera, like this camera right over here. I'm going in front of the camera, and the director says, okay, say this, do this. But before he says that, he says, you look like De Niro. I said, okay, and this is back in 1984 or 5. But I said, I never heard that. I always heard that I looked like Al Pacino. But anyway, that was it. So he had me do some, move around, because it was a commercial. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to see how you look as well as how you act. It was more, I think, a visual thing. So about 45 minutes later, I get a call on my phone. I got the commercial. And that's one thing I always found out and that was an Hitachi commercial. Whenever someone associates me with another actor, I usually get that part. You know what I mean? If someone says if I look like Pacino, I get the part. If they say De Niro or whatever. So that was the first commercial I ever got, and it was unbelievable experience. I'll tell you, we filmed at Santa Monica Airport. We filmed in front of Grauman's Chinese Theater, and we filmed on Wilshire Boulevard, and it was. And I had a leading lady, and I had 2 henchmen in this like 1940s kind of like limo, and it was just incredible. It was an incredible experience.
But there came a time.
That came in at sight. In Yiddish, that means there will come a time. There will come a time.
There came a time.
I'll tell you what.
When we had to go home.
I know. And what my mother, may she rest in peace.
Amen.
She. For years, she's saying, Alan, when are you going to come home? When are you going to come home, meet a nice Jewish girl, get married, go back to school, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I turned like 32 years old. I'm still in Hollywood. I lost my job on Cagney and Lacey. My future didn't, I was dating, but my future, I was like, I was in a downward. When I got to Hollywood, it was because I was in a downward kind of spiral. I lifted myself up. I felt myself going back down again. So I said, what the hell? Maybe I'm going to give my mother a call and say, I'm coming home.
And I got that telephone call. Boy, unbelievable. Dorothy, start packing. We're going to, we left you a car, I think.
Oh yeah, but that's you left me. You brought David's old rabbit.
No, whatever
to me. But what happened was, so I pack up the car, and I got everything that I want to keep. I leave tons of stuff behind. I give it away, whatever. I'm making a decision after being there so long. I'm changing my life again, right? So I'm driving. I figure I'm going to go up the coast and make a right at Sacramento, and then come across the north of the United States.
That's Route 80, I think.
Right. I'm on the way up to Sacramento. All of a sudden, I hear put, and my car. Something's happening to the car, and I got all my possessions in the world in that car, and the car is dying on me. So I get off the highway, and this is something that makes me a little crazy because I'm not sure what I didn't take, but I took 2 suitcases out of the car. Filled them up with what I had. I left everything, including the car, at this junk dealership, junk car place. and I took an airplane and came home. But it was like, that was crazy, because I took all the important things from Hollywood and put it in my car, and then I had to make a subset of that to put into 2 suitcases to go home. And that was freaky. That was crazy. But I still have my original book from SAG that I had to sign. You know, I mean, that had all the rules, and it was like, you know, you make your appointments in it. And I remembered to take my SAG card. I remembered to take all those other, you know, the important things. And then I came home.
Boy, when you came home, Mom started to fly almost.
Yeah, but
Again, there was always a possibility you wouldn't come home. You know,
Right.
why? You went, you became a success, whatever it was, not a bear, whatever it was, and it was good for you.
I was making a living. I was doing well. I was on a
to say
show.
that,
I was doing all this
that's,
stuff.
yeah,
Right.
which was good.
Right.
And so we were happy about that.
Right.
But we decided once we heard you coming home, boy, nobody was happy.
See, but at the same, I'll put it this way: as happy as you were, I was unhappy, because I felt at that point that I was on a downward slope. I was 32 years old. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. I still had a semester left. I didn't finish my college education. I was an unfinished thing, and I was getting old in my mind and in reality. So I went back with a plan. I was going to finish my education. I was going to get a job. I was going to get married. I was going to have kids. I don't know what 5 is yet.
That's
And what 5 is that I wound up getting back into show business at 55 years old, because of my son's best friend's father, who I played poker with, who introduced me to this guy that said, "Hey, you know, you look like De Niro." No, he didn't say that. No, but what he did say was, you know, we have this show called The Stay-at-Home Dad, and we're looking to cast the boss, and we've been having problems. Would you like to audition? And at first I said no. I said, let me think about it. And I asked my wife, and Wendy, thank God she said it. She said, "Alan, you've been talking about this crap for 22 years since you've been back from Hollywood," whatever it was, whatever the amount of time. Someone's putting it in your lap. How could you say no? I was scared. And that's it. And I didn't mess up. And it continues to this day. And you're part of it now too. You're the actor. We do this show, and life is good, right?
When you first told me that, hey, Dad, I thought you were crazy, Alan. No lie.
Right.
What kind of a person? Again, I was in my 90s. How old was I at that time?
You were well. We've only been doing it for like the last 2 or 3 years.
So let's say 3 years. I was 97 years old.
Right.
Here comes a man who tells me, "How would you like a job? How would you like to be an actor?"
Right. That's actually only 2 years, Dad.
2 years, whatever, because in those 2 years I haven't stopped. I've been becoming an actor. Again, I think I'm the kind of guy who dream about it.
Right.
I started and I'm still doing it, and I'm going to do it who knows how long
That's
more.
right.
And
And everyone loves you.
I'm a lover. Alan, again, wasn't my attitude. I'm an optimist.
I know.
An optimist, and I believe this. Miriam found this hat.
And what does it say?
Life is good.
That is.
Do what you like and like what you do.
That's it.
That's me. And Miriam, I
Miriam,
thought
your
this was one
daughter.
of the. But we'll give them a.
But, you know, that is a good hat. And life is good. But guess what, Dad? Sometimes it's not so good, because there's only one thing left to say, Pop. Just one thing. That's a wrap. Good night, folks. So,